Hello folks, we're glad you're here today. We're going to have an auction. The first item up for bid is this gavel, which was earned back in 1999 by auctioneer Jake Olinger. Alright, what do they give? Who's going to start off with $1? Going to give me one? I have one over here now, two. Going to give me two? Who's in the two? I have two, now three, now three, now four, now five. We're going to give me five. I have five, now 10. I have 10, now 15. Got 15, now 20. Going to give me 20. I have 20, now 25. Going to give me 25. Are you 25? I have 25, now 50. I think you're 50, now 75. Now 75, now 75. I have 75, now 100. 100, going to give 100. I have 100. Thank you, ma'am. Got 100. Now 200, two. Will you give two? Who's going to give 200? I have 100, now 200. I have 200 over here. Thank you, sir. 200 now 500. Who's in the 555? Going to give 500. Got 500 now 1,000. Who's going to give 1,000? Got 1,000. Thank you, ma'am. Got 1,000. I think we ought to sell it. Sold. Congratulations. I am Jake Olinger. I'm known as the Stuttering Auctioneer. I am 67 years of age. I've stuttered as long as I can remember. I grew up on a farm in Iowa, a large family. I was number 7 out of 12, so I got it from the upper group and from the lower group. And I really perfected my stuttering. I could really do it with style. Somehow or other, they decided to elect me senior class president, also student body president. I was a very full-blown stutterer at that time. Also, you learn my first formal speech therapy was after I graduated from high school. I had all sorts of help earlier from my mom, my dad, my brothers, my sisters, my aunts, my uncles, my grandparents, and on and on. But it wasn't until somebody who really knew what speech therapy was that I started to change my behavior. My parents drove a half hour to an hour for me just to have speech therapy once a week, and I am very grateful for that. I went to the University of Iowa specifically to learn to talk. I was that good of a stutterer. Had 4 years of speech therapy under the direction of Dean E. Williams, Phil Cox, and other speech therapists there. During those 4 years, I helped train a number of speech therapists, and they learned a lot about stuttering and a lot about me. After college, I worked in the Council Bluffs public school system for a year and a half, working with speaking with school-aged children who had speech problems. The main problems there were mainly the articulation ones, which was the S, R, and L sound. That didn't just necessarily quite work out, so I landed a job with this small company by the name of Procter & Gamble, and I was with them for 28 years. I worked mainly with my hands. I spent a year in the accounting department, and there I learned not to be afraid of big numbers. I spent most of the time in the maintenance area, doing maintenance work on the equipment, on the building, responsible for heating, air conditioning, plumbing, all sorts of things like that. That was in Omaha, Nebraska. I was with them there for 16 years. Then I transferred to Greenville, South Carolina, where we live now, and I helped to produce the Pepto-Bismol brand. And I worked with my hands also there. When the decision was made that our plant would close, had the opportunity to follow a dream, and that was to do something with my speech. And I went off to auctioneering school, and I became an auctioneer. And I've been doing that now for essentially 14 years. And believe me, it is great speech therapy, because you're right out there in the front lines and you're dealing with something that people really like, which is the things that they have acquired all those years, and also people who are going to buy them. And believe me, everybody wants a deal. And I am the deal maker, yes.
My name is Sarah Irvin, and I am a junior communication disorders major at Bob Jones University, and I'm studying to hopefully become a licensed speech pathologist. one day. And what really got me interested in the field of speech pathology was that my cousin is a stutterer, and she's the youngest of 8 children. And my aunt and uncle didn't really realize that Christina stuttered until she started going to speech therapy for some articulation problems when she was 8. And at that point, the speech therapist realized that there were some fluency issues there, but they just addressed it as bumpy speech. And it was something that the speech therapist at the time did not feel comfortable treating or handling. And so it wasn't until Christina was 10 that my aunt and uncle realized that this was a serious issue and that Christina's stutter was getting worse. And because she was the youngest, her siblings and family really had been talking for her for a long time. And it wasn't until Christina went to a stuttering clinic where she first realized that she did struggle with stuttering. And I think it was a huge relief to her just to realize that there was something that she could be identified with, and that she knew that there were concrete things that she could work on. And just the ability that Christina had to address her stuttering and then work on it was so refreshing, and she has come a very long way. And just observing some of her therapy sessions has given me a love for the field and a desire to help others. And Christina now is not going to speech therapy anymore. She has graduated from the clinic and is just very excited to speak more fluently and be able to communicate with those around her. And it's been just a very exciting opportunity to watch Christina.
My name is Marianne Nelson, and I am a speech pathologist in the schools right now, in one of the school districts in Spartanburg, actually. And well, I've stuttered all of my life, ever since I can remember. My mom tells another story, and she says, "Well, I don't really remember you stuttering when you were very young, but I feel like I've been stuttering all of my life." The first experience that I can remember somebody laughing at me is in the 4th grade, but I remember my 3rd grade teacher talking with my mother while I was, during one of those parent conferences, and I'm just hanging around her playing with the toys, and she's, asking her if there's anything, going on at home, because my speech had been getting worse. So, but the first time I remember kids laughing at me, it was in the 4th grade. And I was giving, I had done a report. It was one of those year-long, and this was the culmination, and first you had to do the research. The idea of the whole lesson is to kind of teach you how to, do research, and how to use dictionaries, and how to, there wasn't an internet back then, but just how to do research. And so we had to do the research, and we had to write the report, and we had to do the rough draft, and then we had to make a picture, and then we had to do the final draft. And I had done everything. It was beautiful, and I'd gone up there to read my presentation, and I stuttered the whole thing. I would, at first I just stuttered a little bit, but then as I went on and on and on, and I heard in the background, of course my stutter got worse, and it got worse, and by the end the whole class was up laughing, and I'm ashamed, and I'm like, So, we all have those instances. I mean, I've had instances where I've gone into a restaurant, or I've gone just to go do some business, and I've had people hang up on me on the phone. I've had people laugh at me in my face. I've had a lot of things happen, to me, but thank God I found the NSA, you know, because I think through the NSA it's taught me how to persevere and how to just keep on going. You know, I'll tell anyone that finding the NSA for me is what kind of changed my life around. Because when I found the NSA, speech-wise, I was in a really low place. And I had gone to speech therapy again as an adult. This was my first time going as an adult. I'd had it all through school, on and off. But the thing with me was, in therapy, I was great. I was fluent. There was nothing going on. But then as soon as I left, that's when it got horrible. And none of my speech therapists really didn't believe me that I had a stutter. But I did. And when I went to speech therapy, I sounded great. I think the reason why I sounded so good was because that was like my home, like that was like my cocoon, and I felt safe, and there was nobody there that was gonna laugh or that was gonna bother me. Even now, I tell all of my kids, as soon as you hit that door, all of that bullying, all of that goes out the window, and they know I don't play that because I know how it made me feel, and I know what it is to come into speech and to know that no one's going to laugh at you. No one's going to look at you crazy. That's important. So, which is one of the reasons why I became a speech pathologist. It's so that I can give the same thing that I had as a child back to these other kids, because there's not a lot of people that really understand. And we get pushed to the back burner, and I'm here to make sure that they don't get pushed to the back burner, and I'm here to make sure that their voices are heard, because our voices get lost.
Okay, another item I'd like to share with you is like, what are some things that are good for a person to do for someone who stutters? One of the most important things that I have learned is treat the stutterer the same way you would like to be treated. Take a moment to just listen. I do not know of a stutterer that is still stuttering on that same sound. I will drive that point home. When I was a student at Iowa, we had group therapy, and every so often we would time how long our stutters were. Well, Burton Cherko from El Paso, Texas had the record. 25 seconds. 25 seconds may not sound all that long, but in the speaking world, it is forever. And you know what? He is not stuttering on that sound anymore. Other things to do with stutterers are one of the things that I have learned is to advertise stuttering. Let people know that you stutter. And one of the most rewarding things that I've had is when people will talk about stuttering, where it will like start to put it on a level plane. And it just throws away that barrier. One of the definitions I heard for stuttering from Wendell Johnson was, stuttering is an anticipatory, apprehensive, hypertonic avoidance reaction. In other words, the person anticipates stuttering, doesn't want to stutter, and you know what? Stutters. But if you can destroy that definition by advertising or having it out in the open, you remove that. And I am known as the stuttering auctioneer. Believe me, that just removes a tremendous weight from my head. I love talking. It is so much fun. One of the things that they say sometimes about stutterers, that once they get some good speech therapy and some fluency, they become diarrhea of the mouth. and they just love to talk, love to talk, love to talk, love to talk. And to an extent, that is very true. Stutterers will do all kinds of tricks trying to get through the stutter. They will do hand jerks, leg jerks, their stomach walls will meet, they'll get sweaty, they'll have instant headaches, dry mouth, they will jerk their heads. One of the ones I remember back when I was younger was when I'd say my name, and I'm going to give you a little demonstration so you really kind of see what it's like. Name is Jake. Olinger. It may have been a little bit of an over-exaggeration, but believe me, it was a lot like that. And am I glad those days are over with. It's neat being able to express one's ideas and feelings. I will probably go to my grave as a stutterer. Probably the toughest times right now are still with me is on the phone. For some dumb reason, that phone seems to have control over me. But intellectually, I know that is not true. But reality is, there's still some stuttering in my life. Once again, I hope those are some ideas, some procedures that may have helped as far as for somebody else being able to work through stuttering. Get with good speech therapy people. There's a lot of them that are very, very good, and they will help you.
My name is Andrea, and I'm a senior at Bob Jones University, and I'm studying communication disorders right now. And I am currently in a practicum at a few elementary schools, a middle school, and a preschool. And it has been very interesting because 2 students on the caseload have fluency issues, and I just think that's a really interesting topic to deal with. Most of the caseload includes articulation, so it's been really fascinating to be able to study the process of therapy that one of the therapists has taken to approach this fluency. One of the students is very young, but the approach that the therapist takes is to really address all of the sounds and talking about the placement and the manner and the voice for each of the sounds, and just to really help the student feel comfortable with how each sound is supposed to be produced, so that when a student does get stuck in some sort of stutter, they know how the sound is supposed to be formed, so they are not afraid of it. So she kind of comes across from, well, she has this point of view that if the student feels completely comfortable with the production of sounds, they will be able to be more fluent or not as afraid of being stuck in a stutter because they know how they're supposed to produce it. So it's been really fascinating with that production, and then once she feels that the student has a grasp on each of the sounds, she has a scale where she starts with, it's 1 to 10, a number scale, 5 being really smooth speech, and 1 being very light speech with almost no contact, and then 10 being very, very hard contact. So the goal for the student is to hit a 5, but she'll play around with the scale, and for instance for the word dog, if she says, okay, now I want you to say the word dog, at a 1, it'll be barely any contact, so it would be dog. And then if she says, now I want you to do it, an 8 for me, or something like that. So then he'll try to do it, dog. And then if she says, now we're going to try for a 5, and then the student might say, dog. So it's kind of to help the student feel that he's in control, to help him realize, oh wow, okay, I can control how light my contact is or how hard it is, but we're going to try to aim for the 5. So she uses that scale to play around with the student to help him feel comfortable and aware of how hard the stutter might be, or to see that he can control his fluency to some extent. So it's been really fascinating in that way, and I'm excited to learn more.
So, growing up as a person who stutters, you hear different things about, why people think that you stutter. One of them is, you are thinking too fast, and it's not getting to your, you are thinking too fast. And then another one is the fear, you're afraid. But the real thing is that no one really knows what the cause is. So, in my opinion, I just kind of, I am speaking as a speech pathologist now. I just kind of deal with, the underlying causes. I try to get to know the person or the student, see what might have, triggered it, and then I just try to give them different techniques or strategies that may help them manage their speech a little bit better. Because my thing is, yeah, there's a cause, maybe, but then we've got to handle it now, and we've got to deal with your speech now, and try to teach you how to manage and to, carry on. So some, my favorite techniques are easy onset, pausing, phrasing. When I went back to speech therapy, after I went to speech therapy that first time and I found the NSA, I went to another speech pathologist, and I started the Color Me Fluent program. I loved it. I know it's kind of geared towards younger children, but the techniques and the methodology works. It really works. So I recommend that, and I use a lot of those strategies, and they have helped me, and it gave me a new way of speaking. So that's really what I use. I use a lot of those elements. I use breath and speech together also.
My name is Julian Nelson. I'm actually married to a speech pathologist, Mary Ann Nelson. I don't stutter, but it's been a very interesting ride being married to someone that does stutter. It's so much more intense than most people can imagine. It makes for a great comedy sometimes between the two of us, because we just love to have a good time and joke about it to make light of situations. But it's certainly been interesting getting to see it from both sides of it, to know what it's like watching someone that has this issue to go through it, and then to be on the side where you have to care for that person as well. It's very interesting. I do my best not to do small things that I know would bother an individual that does stutter, like finish their sentences, or to try and speak for her, because honestly that would irritate pretty much anybody, but especially someone that's trying to speak, that is trying to get information out. I think that would really bother them, and I know that bothers her as well, and I do my best. And especially I think I do pretty well at that, but there was one instance where I did, and she quietly pulled me to the side and chewed me out. But I got the message. I understood, and it wasn't intentional. It's just that sometimes you want that person to feel better, even though it's not really an issue of how they feel. is a problem that they're having at the time. You just want to, as a person that cares about them, you want to make it better. So you try to finish it. That's not the way it should be. Or that's the way you feel, but that's not the way they want you to feel about them. They don't want you to pity them in any way. And you know, you feel certainly feel bad about it later, because that was never the intent. I definitely understand it a bit better now after that conversation. And it's funny. She, like I said, she hates the story. I enjoy telling it, but I kind of understood her pain even back when we first met, because we met in high school, actually 8th grade to be exact, and we ran in a lot of the same circles, but we never talked to each other because she was very much a recluse in the school. She was very friendly, but didn't talk much, and especially in high school, that gets you pushed to the side. They get you pushed, almost forgotten about in a lot of ways, and I could clearly understand that. So I certainly never judged, but it always seemed that she was running from me when I did try to talk to her, and finally I caught her. Thank God. I eventually ran her down, and it ended up we just kept running into each other, and we finally met, or finally had an opportunity to sit down and talk. And I guess the rest is history. But yeah, it's certainly been an interesting ride, and it's amazing how much I learned, and I do mean daily. I was told once upon a time, just being married, that there won't be a day that passes that you won't learn something about your spouse. That is true words that have ever been spoken, or true words have never been spoken. It is absolutely the truth, and especially about stuttering. I learned so much more every day than I ever thought was even possible, from the NSA, from talking to my wife, getting her side of the story, just information on top of information, and it's been a blast.
The story is asked, how was it when I proposed to my wife? It was a very special evening. It was on Halloween evening. Did not actually do the proposing until after midnight, which was All Saints Day. So that went just fine. But here's the story I'd love to share. My wife and I, before we were married, we loved to dance. And we were at this dance having a wonderful time. And somehow or other, she got her foot on my foot. And I asked, and she said yes. And that's how we became engaged.